السلام.
Okay, can anybody tell me what are the male reproductive organs?
What, doctor?
Can you tell?
I think Dr. Testis.
Testis, doctor.
Test.
Yeah, tell me. Testis. Okay. Then what are the reproductive tract?
Epididymis,
Epididymis. Then
spermatic cord or vas deferens.
vas deferens. Good.
Then prostate as a gland.
Okay. These are the accessory reproductive organs. Prostate. Then
Seminal vesicle.
seminal vesicle. Good. Then
Epididymis.
epididymis.
Pulpourethral glands.
And Dr. Sorctum.
Bulbourethral gland. Good.
Scrotum.
Okay. Scrotum is the bag within which the testes are present. Okay. Okay. Similarly, what about the female reproductive system? Which are the organs?
Ovary,
Ovaries.
uterine tube,
Yeah.
and uterus.
Okay.
Uterus.
Then cervix as well as the vagina also.
And the cervix.
Yeah. Okay, good. So you know the organs. So from there we'll proceed further. So in this lecture we'll try to understand the same components, the male and female reproductive system, organs, then the differences between male and female reproductive system, as well as some of the adaptations which are taking place. So we have seen this picture before in the last practicals. So the components of the male reproductive system, where the primary sex organ will be the testis. In case of single, it is called as testis, IS, and in case of the plural, when they are two or three, then this is also called as, the pronunciation is same, testis, but the spelling differs, ES. One, it is IS, when it is more than one, it is called as ES. Pronunciation is same, testis, here also it is testis. So this is the main primary reproductive organ in case of male. Then we have the reproductive tract. So this is the testis here, this is the organ, here it is the cut section. Then reproductive tract includes the epididymis, vas deferens, this is the vas deferens, and the whole spermatic cord within which this vas deferens is present. So here the same cut section, epididymis and the vas deferens. Then we have the accessory organs, like the largest organ in case of male, that is the prostate, largest accessory organ. Okay, so this is the prostate. Then we have the seminal vesicle, these are the seminal vesicles, and the bulbourethral glands, which are also called as the Cowper's gland. Then we have the external genitalia, that is the penis. Now we'll go into some more details about this structure, that is the testis. So here you can see here, this is the testis, this is the scrotum, this is the bag, skinny bag within which this testis is present. So this is the scrotum, and here is the testis seen. So it is paired because they are right and left, so they are in pairs, and the shape is almost like an almond. So there is almond shape. Gland, gonads. Gonads means the reproductive organs are called as gonads, male or female, anything. Okay, that are suspended within the scrotum. As you can see here, the testes are suspended within the scrotum and by a spermatic cord. Here is the spermatic cord, which includes the vas deferens. Vas deferens. Along with that, there is the testicular artery. Then we have the plexus of vein called as the pampaniform plexus. Then there are coverings, nerves, everything. Together, this is called as the spermatic cord. Now, the testis is about 4 to 5 centimeters long, and the volume of this capacity of this testis is almost 20 to 25 ml. And the weight is very less, 10 to 15 grams is the normal weight of the testis. And the function is, there are two important functions. One is the spermatogenesis, that is the production of the sperms, that is called as spermatogenesis. Along with this spermatogenesis, it also helps in the production of a hormone, male hormone called as the androgen or testosterone, which helps in the development of the male features, that is the development of beard, mustache, with the growth of the body. All those things helps are done by the hormone produced by the testis. So it does two functions. One is spermatogenesis, production of sperm, as well as production of the male hormone. Now we can see the scrotum. This is the back, skinny back, as I said. It is a cutaneous pouch. Cutaneous means skin. Skin pouch of loose skin, as well as the superficial fascia, which can have the testis and parts of the spermatic cord. Here is the part of the spermatic cord. It is divided on its surface into two lateral portions by a median ridge. So this is the ridge which will divide into two pockets where the two testes are present. If you see here, observe the left scrotum is usually slightly lower than the right. Always the left scrotum is slightly lower compared to the right. Okay. Then what is the function of this scrotum? This also does two functions. One is it houses and protects the testes, just like your house protects you from all the wind, air, rain, everything. Similarly, the scrotum will protect the testes from any kind of injuries. Okay. Then the second and very important function is it regulates the testicular temperature. It helps in the regulation. As you know, the spermatogenesis takes place at a lower body temperature, not at the body temperature which is 37.2 degree. Okay, but it is slightly 4 to 5 degrees lower than the body temperature. So it needs lower body temperature. That's why the testes have come outside the body, so that they are suspended in the scrotum, so that it can lower the temperature. So, and if the temperature is very low outside, then this testes are pulled up so that the temperature is again increased. Okay, so this is how the scrotum acts in regulating means maintaining the temperature which is necessary for the spermatogenesis. Now, if we study the cut section of the internal structure of the testis, so this is how it is seen. It will be having fibrous septa extending from the capsule. Outside there is a capsule. Okay. Then from there will be extensions called as septa. These are the septas. Okay, which will divide the testis into 200 to 300 lobules. Usually we take it the average of that is 250 lobules. This is one lobule, as you can see here. This is one lobule. This is one lobule. So it is made into lobules, chambers by the septas coming from the capsule. Each lobule contains 1 to 3 seminiferous tubules. So if we take 2 as an average seminiferous, these are the tubes called as seminiferous tubules. There will be almost 500 seminiferous tubules in each testis. This is in each testis. The seminiferous tubules each is almost 60 centimeters long. So it is a very long tube, but it is coiled into a very small compact region called as the lobule. So even though it is 60 centimeters long, it is confined to this very small area. They are sites of the spermatogenesis. These seminiferous tubules are very important because these are the sites where the sperms are produced here. Okay, this spermatogenesis takes place within these seminiferous tubules. In between the seminiferous tubules lie the interstitial cells of Leydig. In between these seminiferous tubules, there are very important cells called as the interstitial cells of Leydig. So why they are important? Because they secrete the male hormone testosterone. So those are the hormones produced by the interstitial cells of Leydig, which are in between the seminiferous tubules. They are not inside the seminiferous tubules. They are in between the seminiferous tubules. So all these seminiferous tubules come here at a particular point and join with each other and form a network called as rete testis. Rete testis. Sperms travel through the testis from the tubules through a network of ducts called the rete testis. This is the rete testis to the epidermis. So the sperms will be, which are formed in these the seminiferous tubule, travel into this region called as the rete testis. From there into this part called as the epidermis. Now coming to the blood supply of the testis. Testis is supplied by the testicular artery, which is a branch from the abdominal aorta. This is the testicular artery on either side. So this is the abdominal aorta, a very important artery, which is giving a branch into the testis. So it is a branch from the abdominal aorta. This is called as the testicular artery because it is supplying the testis. So it is called as testicular artery. Now coming to the venous drainage is by a vein called as the testicular vein. The name is similar. This testicular artery, testicular vein. So it will be, but the drainage is different from the artery. So if you see, the venous drainage is not into the inferior vena cava. So if you see the inferior vena, this is the inferior vena cava, which will be beside the artery. So the right testicular vein drains into the inferior vena cava, but the left will drain into the renal vein. This is the renal, this is the kidney. Okay, so the vein which is draining the kidney also drains the testicular vein from there into the inferior vena cava. Okay, so there is difference in the venous drainage. On the arterial supply is same for both testes, right and left, it is testicular artery. But on the venous drainage, the right testicular vein drains into the inferior vena cava and the left drains into the renal vein from there into the inferior vena cava. Why it is important? This is clinically very important because this vein, the right testicular vein, drains at an acute angle, so there is no much pressure here created. But this vein drains at right angles against the gravity, so it has to go like this, drain against this at right angles. Okay, so this vein, usually the backflow of the veins is prevented by valves, presence of valves. If you have seen, all the veins will have valves. Okay, but sometimes because of the overload which is going against the gravity, so sometimes the valves fail and it leads to a condition called as the varicose vein, varicosity. So that is called as the varicocele, and it is more commonly seen on the left side. Why? Because this testicular vein drains at right angles, not like here. Okay, so that's why there is more pressure here, which leads to this dilatation of veins around this testis on the left side. So it is more prone for varicose vein, varicocele. It is called as varicocele. So the venous drainage, campaniform plexus, they form a plexus around and they drain into the testicular vein on the right side into the inferior vena cava. On the left side, it drains into the left renal vein and from there into the inferior vena cava. Coming to the lymphatic drainage, the testicular lymphatics will drain into the para-aortic group of lymph. Just beside the aorta, there will be lymph nodes. So it will drain into the para-aortic group of lymph nodes from the testis. But the skin of the scrotum, penis, and prepuce will drain into the superficial inguinal group of lymph nodes. Very important group of lymph nodes, which are very important clinically. Okay. Now coming to the next structure after the testis is the epididymis. Epididymis. Here is the epididymis. So this is the epididymis here. So it is a coiled tube. It is a single coiled tube actually, even though all these are the reticulocytes here. If you see here, these are the seminiferous tubules. This is the capsule, and here are the septa, and this is the lobule, which the seminiferous tubules, and they drain to the reticulocytes and from there into the epididymis through the efferent ductules. Initially, there are multiple tubules all joined to form a single tube, and that coiled tube forms the epididymis. So it is a single coiled tube, almost 6 meters long. Again, it is very long tube, but again confined to a very small area, compact area, located on the superior and posterior margin of the testis. So as I said before, so it is present posterior and superior to the testis. So it is divided into 3 parts: the head, body, and tail. Head is also called as the caput. Caput means head. Caput epididymis. Then body is also called as corpus. Corpus epididymis. The tail is called as the chorda. Chorda epididymis. So the head, body, and the tail. It has 3 parts: the caput, the corpus, and the chorda. Head, body, and the tail of the epididymis. Then it continues as the vas deferens, or it is also called as the ductus deferens. The head receives rete testis efferent ductus from the testis. As you can see here, the head is receiving efferent ductus from the rete testis. The tail continues as the vas deferens or the ductus deferens. What are the functions of the epididymis? One is it secretes and absorbs the nourishing fluid which are necessary for the sperms to be alive. So it will secrete very important nourishing fluid for the sperms. Then it also helps in recycling the damaged spermatozoa. So it will remove all the damaged spermatozoa or the sperms from the fluid. Then third, it stores the spermatozoa up to 2 weeks to 14 to 15 days to allow for physiological maturation of the sperms. The maturation of the sperms, even though the sperms are produced in the testis, they are mature here. They are matured here. Okay, so this is the site where the sperms are maturing. Now, once they are mature, then they are taken by the vas deferens or the ductus deferens here. Okay, so this is the ductus deferens. So here from the here, if you see testis, epididymis, this is the ductus deferens or vas deferens. So vas deferens is a muscular tube almost 45 centimeters long. So 45 centimeters long, which will carry the sperms from the scrotum back into the pelvis. Carries sperms from the epididymis to the pelvic cavity, passes through the inguinal canal. This tube will pass through the inguinal canal as one of the content of the spermatic cord. Okay. Then it joins the duct of the seminal vesicle to form the ejaculatory duct. So if you remember, I told you, so this vas deferens will join with the seminal, this is the seminal vesicle, to form the ejaculatory duct, which will open into the prostatic urethra. This is the prostate, this is the ureter, the bladder, urinary bladder, and this is the urethra. This is the prostatic part of the urethra because it is passing through the prostate. So this is called as prostatic urethra. So this ejaculatory duct, which is formed by joining of the vas deferens and the seminal vesicle, will open into this into the prostatic urethra. Now coming to the accessory glands, there are three accessory glands: seminal vesicle, prostate, as well as the bulbourethral glands, or also called as the Cooper's gland. As you can see here, these are the seminal vesicles, prostate, and these are the bulbourethral glands. So what is the function of these accessory glands? One is secretion of the seminal fluid, a very important fluid in which the sperms will be floating. So that is called as the seminal fluid. So that is produced by these three accessory glands. The second is nourishing and activation of the sperms. So regular nourishment, because the sperms, till they are there, they should be nourished, fed with proper food and nourishment. So that is done by that, as well as the activation of the sperms. Okay, that fluid is also helpful for the activation of sperm. Then also helps in the protection of the sperm because it is floating within the fluid. So damage of the sperms is lesser compared to the if it is not. So these are some of the functions of the accessory glands. They are producing the seminal fluid, which helps in the nourishing as well as activation of the sperms as well as the protection of the sperms. Now coming to the prostate gland, the largest of the male accessory glands. So this is the prostate. This is how it looks like. It's pyramidal shape with reverse pyramid with the base above and the apex below. So this is the base of the prostate, but this is the neck of the bladder. Neck of the bladder and the base of the prostate are in contact with each other. So this is the largest male accessory gland. It is a fibromuscular glandular tissue. So if you see here, it will be fibro. It has fibers as well as muscular glandular tissue. These are the glands which are present within that. Okay, it is the size of a walnut, located at the neck of the bladder. As I said, it is at the neck of the bladder, which is in contact with the base of the prostate. Traversed by the prostatic urethra. If you see here inside that, the bladder is opening through the prostate, through the prostatic urethra. It secretes 20 to 30% of the seminal fluid. So it's small quantity of fluid. Even though this is the largest male accessory gland, it secretes only 20 to 30% of the seminal fluid. Shape is conical shape or pyramidal shape, whatever you call. functions, it secretes enzymes which have the following functions. So what are the functions of the prostatic secretion? One is it aids in activating sperm motility. So these prostatic secretions are very important for the activation of the sperm motility. Second is mucus degradation. Degradation means decreasing. So the mucus content within the seminal fluid is decreased. If there is more mucus, then it is difficult to fertilize. Okay, so mucus is decreased. Then neutralize the acidity of the female reproductive tract, which is alkaline. Okay, so once it goes into the female reproductive tract, the female reproductive tract is alkaline. Okay, so this is neutralized by the secretions of the prostate. If not, the sperms are killed. The sperms are killed. So first, the prostatic fluid will go and it will neutralize. Then the sperms can float into the female reproductive tract. Now, finally, coming to the penis, which is the copulatory as well as the excretory organ. It is the penile urethra transmits urine as well as the seminal fluid. Within this, here is the sponge urethra, or it is also called as penile urethra, which is transmitting urine as well as the seminal fluid. So it is a common passage for both urine and the seminal fluid. That is the urethra in case of male. So it is the copulatory organ. It has 3 cylindrical masses of erectile tissue. So there are 3 masses of erectile tissue. The 2 are the corpora cavernosa. Corpora cavernosa. Okay. And below this is called as the corpus spongiosum. Corpus spongiosum. This is the corpus cavernosum. This is the corpus spongiosum. Okay. So for the erection of the penis, it is the corpus cavernosum which helpful. But the corpus spongiosum, it doesn't help in the erection because it is transmitting the urethra. Okay, so that is about the male reproductive system. Do you have any questions regarding the male reproductive system?
Cavernosa is the one that is responsible for secretion.
Pardon?
You said? The cavernosa, you said, is the one that is responsible for secretion.
Not secretion. Cavernosa is the erection of the penis.
And the spongiosum, I didn't get the difference.
Yeah, corpus cavernosum help in erection of the penis. Okay, so because the blood will be filled here. During erection, the blood will be filled within these cavities. There are spaces here. Cavernosum means spaces. Okay, where the blood will fill here and it helps in the erection. But the corpus spongiosum doesn't have such kind of space. So there is no erection here. It is not, the blood doesn't fill here. Okay, if it fill here, then it will compress the urethra. Okay, so this corpus spongiosum, that's why it is called as spongiosum. It is soft, so it doesn't help in erection because it is transmitting the urethra inside that. So it also, if it becomes filled with blood, then it will compress the urethra. So this corpus spongiosum doesn't help in the erection. Okay, so it doesn't fill with blood, but the corpus spongiosum, the cavernosum, it will be filled with blood, which helps in the erection of the penis. Is it clear?
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, if you don't have questions, we'll go to the female reproductive system. Okay, as you know, so this is the region, pelvic, this is called as the pelvic region. So if you see a side view, this is how it looks like. Okay, here is the bladder, urinary bladder and urethra in case of the female, which is very short. Then here, this is the uterus, and see the position of the uterus. This is anteverted, anteflex position. And here, this is the fallopian tubes, and here is the ovary, and this is the cervix, and this is the vagina. And behind that is this is the rectum. Coming to the components of the female reproductive system. So these are divided into internal and external genitalia. Okay. So the main organ of reproduction will be the ovaries. Just like in case of male, it will be testes. In case of female, it will be the ovaries. Along with that, the other internal genitalia includes the uterus, the cervix, the vagina, uterine tubes, which are also called as the oviducts or the fallopian tube. All are present in the true pelvis. It is present in the pelvis, not like in case of male where the testes are outside the true pelvis. They are outside into the scrotum. Okay, but in case of the female, all organs are present within the true pelvis. Then we have the external genitalia, which are present in the perineum, which includes the mons pubis, clitoris, the urethral meatus, labia majora, then the vestibule, greater vestibule, as well as the skinny glands and the peripheral area. So all these are the part of the external genitalia. Now you can see here, these are the ovaries, and here are the fallopian tubes, this is the uterus, cervix, and the vagina. So if you compare these ovaries, these are the ovaries which are the main primary organs in the female. So they are very similar. I had told you, very similar in the anatomy, but histologically they are different, because when we see under the microscope they are structurally different. But anatomically, outside if you see, the size is almost similar, 4 into 2 centimeters, 4 centimeters long and 2 centimeters width. Okay, just the size of the testes. Then it is also almond shape, just like the testes. There is also almond shape or oval shape. Okay, but this lies in the pelvis, in the true pelvis. But in case of the male, it will be lying outside into the scrotum. But in case of female, it will be in the pelvis, in a depression called as the ovarian fossa. There will be a depression where this will be sitting. This is called as the ovarian fossa. What is the function of the ovaries? Just like in case of male, there are two functions. Similarly, in case of female, it has two functions. One is the production of the female germ cell, that is called as the oogenesis. Along with that, it helps in the secretion of the female sex hormone. Just like in case of male, there is production of the male sex hormone, that is the testosterone in case of testes. Here, ovaries will produce two hormones, not one but two hormones, that is the estrogen as well as the progesterone. These are the female sex hormones which are produced within the ovaries. Blood supply, just like in case of the male, there it is the testicular artery. Here in case of the female, it will be the ovarian artery. So same like in case of the male, it is coming from the abdominal aorta on either side. Ovarian arteries are coming from the abdominal aorta. And similar to that of the male, the ovarian vein on the right side will drain into the inferior vena cava, and on the left side it drains into the left renal vein. So similar to that of male, here also the complications arises. It is rare in case of female, it is lesser in case of female, but it can lead to varicose vein on the left side. So left side varicosity is more common compared to the right side, but it is more common in case of male compared to the female. Female have lesser chances of having the varicose. Okay. Then the lymphatic drainage is also very similar to that of the testes. It will be into the para-aortic group of lymph nodes, and the nerve supply is from the aortic plexus. Now coming to the uterine tubes, also called as fallopian tubes, or also called as the oviduct. So it is 10 centimeters long tube. So this is the oviduct, so which is 10 centimeters long, and it is enclosed in the upper border of the broad ligament of the uterus. This is the broad ligament. You have seen that the broad ligament of uterus in yesterday's practical you have seen. So that is the fold of peritoneum which is hanging on either side over the fallopian tube. This is the broad ligament here. So the fallopian tube is divided into 4 parts. One is called as, the first part is called as the infundibulum. The funnel shaped part is called as the infundibulum. Then we have the most dilated part where the fertilization takes place, that is the ampulla. Then we have a narrow part called as the isthmus, and the intramural part within the muscle mass. There is a part of the tube which is passing, that is called as intramural. Mural means muscle, intra means inside the muscle part. Okay, so that small tube is called as the intramural. So there are 4 parts: infundibulum, ampulla, isthmus, and the intramural part. So what is the function of these fallopian tubes? So this is, as I said before, it is the site of fertilization of the ovum. So The fertilization takes place here in the ampullary part. Ampulla is the part where the fertilization takes place. Then there will be, once it is fertilized, then it will be transported into the uterine cavity for implantation there. So this fallopian tube first helps in the carrying of the sperms all the way up to the ampulla, ovum into the ampulla. Then fertilization takes place, and the fertilized egg will come back into the uterine cavity through the same fallopian tube. So all these functions are done by the fallopian tubes, uterine tubes, or the oviduct. Then coming to the organ where the fetus will actually grow, that is the uterus. Even though the ovum are produced in the ovary, so this is how they look like in the histology. Okay, so even though they are produced here, the ovum, once it is fertilized, it will grow in the uterine cavity. So this is the uterine cavity. This is a triangular shaped cavity of the uterus, and see the thickness of the mass. So this is the muscle mass, which helps in the complete expansion of this uterine cavity. Okay, so it is a hollow pear-shaped muscular organ. As you can see, it is hollow because there is a cavity. Pear-shaped, it looks like a pear, and muscular. If you can see the thickness of the muscle. Okay, so that's why it is a muscular organ. It is in case of the young nullipara adults. What do you mean by nullipara? Those ladies who have never given birth to any children, those are called as nullipara. So it measures almost 3 inches into 2 inches into 1 inch. So 3 inches in length, 2 inches in breadth, and 1 inch in the thickness. So that will be the size of the uterus in case of the nulliparas. But in case of multiparas, multipara means those ladies who have given birth to many children. So in this, the uterus will be much more larger. The uterus has the capacity to expand to a very large extent. Okay, so in case of the multipara, it will be very large, especially during pregnancy. So this uterus is divided into 3 parts. This is called as the fundus. Above the opening of the fallopian tube, this is called as the fundus, and this is the body, and the lowermost part, which is the least dilated part, as I said before, this is the cervix. And the normal position of the uterus is anteverted anteflex position. So this is the normal position of the uterus. So this is called as anteverted anteflex. What do you mean by this? So the anteversion, this is the angle between the called as anteversion. This is the angle between the long axis of the vagina and the long axis of the cervix. So in between them, there is 90-degree angulation. So this is called as anteversion. So then also there is angulation between the body of the uterus, the green line, by the long axis of the cervix. This is more obtuse. This is the angle of anteflexion. This is called as anteflexion. This is called as anteversion. So this position is said to be the normal position. Anteflexion, anteversion. Position of the uterus, anteverted. The long axis of the whole uterus is bent forward on the long axis of the vagina. So this is called as the anteverted. Then anteflex, long axis of the body of the uterus is bent on the long axis of the cervix. So this is called as anteflexion. So this is the normal position, anteverted, anteflex. Coming to the blood supply of the uterus, uterus is supplied by a very highly coiled artery. This is called as the uterine artery. This is the uterine artery. Highly coiled. Why it is highly coiled? Because as I said before, the uterus has the capacity to expand to a very large extent. So if it expands and enlarges, how the artery will, if it is straight artery, then it will rupture. It cannot supply the whole gland organ, as well as it will rupture. So to prevent that, it is highly tortuous here. This is called as tortuous zigzag line. Okay, so highly tortuous artery. So that is called as uterine artery. They are pair on either side, both the side, and they form knot of network. Okay. Coming to the venous drainage, it forms a plexus, venous plexus. If you see here, there are veins, multiple veins. All these veins form plexus, that is called as the form plexus, which will drain into the uterine vein. So here is the uterine artery, this is the uterine vein, which are the main artery and vein which are supplying the uterus. Now coming to the cervix and the vagina. So here is the cervix and the vagina. The cervical canal, it communicates with the cavity of the body through the internal os. So this is the cavity of the cervix, which communicates into the cavity of the uterus through the internal os, and with the vagina through the external os. Outside, it is communicating with the external os. Okay. So in between is the whole of the cervix and the cervical canal, which is fusiform. The vagina is fibromuscular in tube and extend from the external os to the open into the vulva. Outside, that is called as vulva or the female external genitalia, and inside it is from the external os. What is the function? It is helpful in the it acts as a copulatory organ, as well as it also helps in the birth canal. It also acts as a birth canal. So these are the functions of the vagina. Now coming to the structures which will be holding the uterus in its position. These are called as uterine and cervical ligaments. So here we are talking only about the uterine ligaments. Okay, that is the broad ligament, which you already seen. It is a peritoneal fold, so it doesn't have much role. Along with that, there are two important ligaments. One is called as round ligament. If you see here, this is the round ligament. Yesterday I showed you on the body the round ligament which passes through the inguinal canal in case of the female. Okay, so this round ligament is a very important structure which holds the uterus in its position, that is anteverted anteflex position. The second is the ovarian ligament. So if you see here, there is one ligament which is connecting the uterus with that of the ovary. So this is called as the ovarian ligament. This is the ovarian ligament, this is the round ligament. So these are the three ligaments: broad ligament, round ligament, and the ovarian ligaments. So this is all about the male and female reproductive tract. And if you have any questions, you can ask me now.
Doctor, do we have to know about the names of the broad ligaments parts, like mesosalpinx, mesovarium, mesometrium?
Did I tell you about that?
No.
No, here I did not tell. So what is not there, don't worry, because that will teach you later. So if it is covered somewhere else in the histology or somewhere, I don't know. But here, whatever is there in this lecture, so that's what you can draw. Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Once you go to the urogenital system, there will go into much more details about this. Okay. Right now, you should know this one. Okay. Any other questions?
Should we know the difference between the round ligament and the ovarian ligament and the broad ligament, or we just should know that there are three ligaments?
Yeah, just know the ligaments. So you don't have to identify as such right now. So you just have to know them. Okay, but I have told you the difference. When I said the broad ligament, I have showed you yesterday in the practical. It is nothing but a peritoneal fold. Okay, the round ligament I also showed you, which is important for holding the uterus in its position. And the third is the ovarian ligament. So these are the three ligaments. There are more ligaments called as cervical ligaments. Right now I'm not telling about this, because this again you will study later. So we will not just this much is enough for you. Okay, just know them. Will not ask you to usually identify those structures right now in this level. When you go to the higher level, then we'll ask. Okay. Okay, any other questions?
Thank you, Doctor.
Okay, start reading. As I said, this lecture will include is included in the quiz 1, as well as the 2 more lectures which are coming. Okay, this lecture as well as 2 more lectures will be for the Sunday's quiz. Okay, start preparing, reading, start reading, because later we'll have much more lectures which you might feel difficult. So start reading, finish off every week. Okay. Okay, then you can leave. Thank you.